Beau, welcome to the show. Can you tell us about your early career as a public defender and what inspired you to become involved in bail reform?
Sure. It's great to be here, Emily. Thank you for inviting me. I was a public defender in Mississippi for almost 20 years. And I started out right out of law school in a small Gulf Coast town in Mississippi, representing people charged with all sorts of crimes, from misdemeanors to the most serious felonies. And so what I learned during that experience is all my clients had something in common. None of them could afford a lawyer. So most were, impoverished, and they didn't have the same supports that I know that I was used to. So what that meant was when they got arrested, they had very tenuous ties, to the community and to supports to meet their needs. And when they were arrested, all those things went away. So for instance, a lot of my clients would get arrested and they would lose their housing. They would lose their job. They would lose connection to family members who, they didn't know what to do when somebody was arrested. And a lot of times they even lost their children because they were the sole caretakers of those kids. And so the state would take them. So that was a lot of my experience as a public defender, trying to fight this uphill battle of not only, defending a legal case, but also trying to get my clients back into a position where they were connected to their community and where their needs were being met.
You've received recognition for your efforts to improve public defense in the South. Can you share what that means and why it's important?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. It's a question about kind of a long career in public defense. As we were just talking about, I was a trial level public defender in that Gulf Coast town. And I did that for about 10 years. And then the second half of my career as a public defender was as a training director. So in Mississippi has a very small statewide office that's in charge of training all the public defenders in the state. And I was the training director. But I think I was recognized because I really put a lot of effort in to giving people the type of defense that they would have if they were not poor. If somebody can afford a lawyer, they expect certain things out of that lawyer. They expect, a zealous advocate, and they expect somebody to call them back. And those were things that, I was training public defenders on, as well as, the changes in the law and strategies at trial and all those things, that you think that lawyers do. I mean, we made great strides, but Mississippi is a really hard place. And so even though you make great strides, there's a long way to go. I think the other thing to go along with that answer is that public defense is a really tight-knit community. So when people are working really hard within that community, then we recognize each other because we know that's the way to keep people refreshed and not burn out and keep them moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's good to have that support system.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can you explain the mission of the Bail Project and how it helps people in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So it goes along that same theme of being a public defender. People that we help at the Bail Project are people that can't afford to post even very small amounts of bail to get out of jail. And when I say get out of jail, I mean, people get charged with crimes all the time. And as Americans, we know those are just accusations. And those accusations have to be proven in court. So at the Bail Project, we post bail for people that can't afford it to level the playing field for those that don't have money the same way that you and I would to post, a $50 or $100 bail to get out of jail and fight our case. When we do that, we preserve the presumption of innocence that we all have as people, residing in this country. And those are the promises, that the Constitution gives us and the promises that court systems make to us. So we post that bail, but then we also, do something else that the system has, historically failed to do, is we treat people as individuals. So before we post their bail, we interview them to see whether this is somebody that we can support. And what I mean by that is, we try to identify the needs that they would like help with. Like my earlier example, if they've lost housing, then we try to reconnect them with housing. If they need mental health care or substance abuse treatment, then we try to connect them with those things. And when we interview them, if we can find a local resource for that to help them, then we post bail and connect them to that resource. Through all of that, we collect data on the folks that we're trying to help, about the outcomes of their cases and about the partners that we're connecting them with. And we try to make local as well as national change into this pretrial system. So this pretrial system is one that puts more people in jail than any other within our country. A lot of people think most people are in prison. That's not true. There are like 500,000 people on any given day in a local jail. And out of that 500,000, 2/3 of those have never been convicted of anything. They're just being held pretrial, oftentimes on very low bail amounts.
What are some of the challenges and successes you've seen in implementing the bail project's direct services in the South?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, that's the stuff that we love to talk about. So the bail project started in late 2017. And since that time, we bailed out almost 28,000 people and supported them to over 100,000 court dates. And our clients returned to court 9 out of 10 times. So, 90% of that almost 28,000 people come to all their court dates. And so that's a great success because, another part of our mission is to help this humanitarian crisis be alleviated for the poorest of the folks that are among us. People being held in cages, for real small amounts of money is a humanitarian crisis. And for all 28,000 people that we've helped, those are just great successes. Some of the obstacles that we have faced are that systems are really hard to change. And even though they're doing things that, hurt our communities, that's the way it's always been done. And finding solutions to support people within communities and talking to people that have the power to change those systems is a long and arduous process. And it's something that we fight at every day, and that's the biggest obstacle. The other obstacle is that we try to connect people to services within communities, but our communities are under-resourced. Look at here in Florida. It's a housing crisis everywhere in Florida. And so, trying to find affordable housing for people is really difficult.
How does the lack of caregiver support and bail support affect individuals and their families?
Yeah, so, one of the things that we do before we bail somebody out is we have to find somebody else that we could call in case we couldn't get a hold of the person that we're bailing out. And we do that because we want to make sure that there's somebody out there that can get them the message that, hey, they have court tomorrow, or, that they have a mental health appointment that we can give them, transportation to. Because, one of the things that we do, like our core services, is we text people and let them know when their next court date is. And we call them if we don't get a response to the text. And then we call that third-party contact if we can't talk to that person. And then when they need to get to court, we set up a free Lyft ride for them. If they need to get to a job interview, we do the same thing. If people don't have phones, then we try to get them a phone. So those are a lot of the core services that we have. But people are missing basic supports within the community. It's really hard sometimes to find a third-party contact for the clients that we would like to bail out. And so we got to figure out somebody else within the community that could step up and maybe be that third-party contact. Maybe that's somebody that's trying to help them find housing, or maybe it's somebody that's trying to help them find work. So, for instance, one of our best partners is an organization called Operation New Hope. And Operation New Hope has been here. They're coming up on their first anniversary here in Orlando, but they've been in Jacksonville for over 20 years. And what they do is they provide housing for people, provide a mental health counselor to everyone that needs it, and then they put them through a program with a list of employers that have contracted to say, hey, if you go through this program, then we'll employ you. And so those are kind of the ways that we're trying to support people when those supports don't exist already.
Can you share a success story or transformative moment that has come out of your work with the Bail Project?
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Jacksonville. One of our clients in Jacksonville, he was an 18-year-old young man that had severe mental health problems. And he got arrested on a probation violation. And the reason why he got arrested is because he didn't even know that he was on probation. His mental health was in such a place that he wasn't able to do just everyday things, let alone know when to come to court. And so he ended up in jail, and we interviewed him and knew that he was really suffering, but he knew his mother's phone number, so we gave her a call. She didn't know where he was. She was so thankful that we could just call her and say, this is where your son is, and we've talked to him, and we know that he's safe. So we were able to post bail for that young man. We were able to connect him to mental health services, and we were able to support his mom in getting him back and forth to appointments, as well as just the simple fact of somebody else out in the community that is supporting what you're struggling with. She had 6 other children. So this was, this was a really big help to her. That's a success story, but obviously one where he's going to struggle for a long time, but he's not going to sit in jail and do it because we didn't post his bail.
How can people get involved in supporting criminal justice reform in Central Florida?
I think the Bail Project is on the cutting edge of addressing the most serious problem that we have in criminal justice right now. And I say that as a former public defender and somebody who has been a keen observer of this space for a long time. The reason why it is so important to invest in changing our pretrial system is because it's the place in our system that hurts the most people. And it can be reformed easily with very common sense reforms. And it does the most harm. So, for instance, if somebody is charged with a low-level offense, instead of taking them in jail and holding them on a small amount of money, giving them a ticket and saying, come back to court on August the 20th. And then if they don't show up, then you can always arrest somebody, right? Those are things that we're not doing very often. And those are things that can happen, today, right? So why do I bring that up? Because I think people should be invested in pretrial reform. And the best way that you can do that is you can go to our website. It's called bailproject.org. And if you go to bailproject.org, then you're going to see what our mission is, but you're also going to see client stories, and you're going to explain exactly why we're fighting so hard. The other thing that you can do is you can donate a small amount of money to an organization like the Bail Project, and that can help people right now. Even a small amount of money is something that's going to help somebody get out of jail that if they had money, they would not have been there. I think something that's really important that not many people do and that they haven't done before is to just pick a random day when you have 2 hours and go sit in court and see what our criminal justice system looks like. And just these kind of ordinary injustices, the same things that I've kind of been describing to you, these are not front page stories, right? But this is stuff that happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all across this nation. 2/3 of the people that are in jail in Orlando right now are being held pretrial, and they haven't been convicted of anything. If you go sit in court, then you're going to hear how that happens. And you're going to be able to tell your neighbor about what you saw and get them involved in trying to make a more fair and equitable justice system for everybody.
So what is next for the Bail Project in Central Florida, and how can our viewers stay connected?
Yeah, so what is immediately next is trying to find more people that we could post bail for, supporting them back to court, collecting that data so that we can make the case that there is no reason why people should be held on an arbitrary amount of money when they could be safely released in the community and connected to services. That's what we do every single day. But in the medium term, we're trying to put ourselves out of business. And the way that we're trying to do that is we're trying to make the posting of bail not something that is necessary, because the case that we can make, with the data that we have and the stories that we've shared here and that I've shared with you, about our clients. So by putting ourselves out of business, that means, we don't have to post bail, and we've built up a support network and a system of partners that can step in and take the place of the work that we're doing when we leave. And hopefully that's sooner rather than later. We're not looking to be around forever, because if we're around forever, that means we're failing at our mission. Partners like Operation New Hope and other folks, in Jacksonville that can really step into that void that we're filling right now temporarily to provide support services for people that need it.
If you could give one piece of advice to those watching who want to make a positive impact in the criminal justice reform, what would it be?
Don't turn a blind eye to the people that are right in front of you in your community that are in need. And don't be afraid to step forward and try to help that person. That's what the Bail Project is trying to do. If you are donating somewhere, then donate to solutions-based organizations. People like Operation New Hope, people like the Bail Project, who are actually in the community, have a plan, and are changing people's lives every day.
We're going to do this activity, and we're going to involve the viewers here. It's going to be a myth-busting criminal justice activity. I'm going to give you a sentence, and you tell me whether it's a myth or if it's fact.
Great.
And maybe tell us a little bit about it, too.
Okay, sounds like fun.
Yeah. All right, so the first one is, defendants released under bail reform will flee.
It's an absolute myth, Emily. And the reason why it's a myth is we have research that goes back all the way to the 1950s that says that people are just likely to return to court on their own, and it doesn't matter whether they have to post some arbitrary amount of money or not. The simple fact is that people don't want to miss court. Nobody wants to be out there with a warrant for missing court, and they could be picked up, at any time that they run into law enforcement, and that law enforcement officer runs their name. Then they have to sit in jail and try to resolve that warrant. The things that we do at the Bail Project also, make it more likely that somebody's going to show back up at court, because research tells us that, if somebody knows when their court date is, and if they actually have transportation there, then they're more likely to show up. And those are things that we provide to all our clients that need them.
The next one is bail reform is a one-size-fits-all solution.
That's a myth too. Bail reform it takes many different forms. And when it's done best, it's done, community to community, because, that people in Orlando know changes that make sense for Orlando. The same thing for our other sites in Florida, Pensacola and Jacksonville. Those folks, they put their heads together and they can come up with solutions for their individual communities. And we want to be there to foster those conversations. So with that said, the current bail system is actually a one-size-fits-all. There are very few people that are released without some sort of money that has to be posted or paid for them to get out. And we know that one-size-fits-all system doesn't work, and it actually treats people with money much differently than those without.
The next one is bail reform equals eliminating bail altogether.
I think that's a myth as well, for the same reason as the prior answer. When it's done well, it has many different options for people's release. I think it's unlikely that the state of Florida or many of the places that we work in our other 20 sites across this nation are going to totally eliminate cash bail. I think it's possible when local communities have solutions to some of these underlying reasons why people don't show up at court. And cases can be made to totally, eliminate cash bail in those places. But right now, we're just trying to find more fair and equitable solutions to alleviating the problem that cash bail poses for communities.
The next one is cash bail is fair for all.
Yeah, that's a myth. For all the reasons that we just discussed. Simply put, it treats people that actually have money much differently than people without. People without money end up sitting in jail when they've only been accused of committing a crime just because they don't have enough money in the bank, or they don't have access to family members or other supports in the community that could come up and post even very small amounts of money. Like we talked earlier, $53, or that person that we bailed out last month here in Orlando, $100. People that have money, they don't lose their homes. They don't lose their jobs, and they don't lose their kids, because they bail out quickly after they get charged, and those things still exist, and they're able to help their attorney fight their case while they're out. People that are in jail just don't.
The next one is cash bail is necessary to ensure court appearance.
Yeah, that's a total myth, Emily. It's actually just the opposite. There has never been proven any relationship between the amount of money somebody posts and their likelihood to show back up at court. It doesn't have anything to do with it. That's the strange thing. People in general want to show back up at court. They want to resolve their case. They want to move on with their lives. And when you give them very simple supports when they don't have them, they do that regardless whether money's involved or not.
The next one is bail reform means releasing all defendants.
Yeah, that's a total myth. Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that. We trust judges at the Bail Project, and judges make decisions after reviewing all the evidence before them that the prosecutor gives them, that the defense attorney gives them, and things that they know about somebody's prior record. They make release decisions, and regardless whether we're reforming bail or not, the judge is still going to set those conditions. So in no world does it mean releasing everybody. There's a lot of people at the Bail Project that we have to say no to, and that's unfortunate. We would love to say yes to many more people. But the fact is, they're dealing with needs, especially mental health or substance use needs, that we can't meet in the community. And we're not going to post bail for somebody that we don't think that we can support in the community. If they're going to be a danger to themselves or somebody else, after we interview them and learn about them, then those are folks that, we're not going to be able to bail out.
And the last one is bail reform compromises public safety.
It's actually just the opposite. So it's a myth. If we don't reform the current bail system, then public safety is compromised. And the reason is because when people get arrested, especially on low-level offenses, and in serious offenses as well, they're going to get out of jail at some point, most of the time in the very near future. And right now, all it takes is an amount of money to get somebody out, or all it takes is for them to sit in jail for 2 weeks until the prosecutor, says, hey, if you plead guilty, then we'll give you a time-served sentence and you can get out. So people are being released in a not better situation than how they came in. And so what we endeavor to do with the Bail Project is to connect people to services that actually makes them in a better position to have their needs met and to make their life trajectory much more positive going forward than what the current system does. So the current system actually, that's where public safety is compromised. That's why we're fighting so hard to change it.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, and this was a very enlightening conversation. Thank you.
Great. I appreciate it, Emily, and I'd love to be back.
If you're enjoying this show, please subscribe to our channel and follow our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts.